Okay, so my talk's going to be a very philosophical talk, hopefully entertaining, and perhaps controversial. Why? Because it's NullCon, right? Why not? All right, so we're going to talk about a few abstract concepts. You'll have to put up with me for the next 45 minutes or however long it takes. My name is Saumil Shah, and this is a slide that we've been using for, wait, hey, slide has changed, but the view has not. Something stuck. Folks, can you come up here and quickly check the slides? Yeah, the monitor's gone off and none of the slides are changing. This is something different. I think this is your computer, not mine. Okay, we have a signal override. ये चाहिए मुझे. No, it's plugged in. This one's also off. The screen was on. No power. Yeah, no power. Actually, the whole power is off. Yeah, that's what happens, right? When everything else fails, power on, power off, power off, power on. Fixes everything, right? If not, then you go to Stack Overflow. All right, let's see how it goes. Power is on. And remove and again plug. Okay, sure, no problem. Remove and again plug, done. Nope. Turn it off and on again. We're done? Okay, we're done. Yay. Ye chalega. I can do this. Excellent. Now we have my real slides. This is a real example of clickjacking. I always believe that there's nothing like clickjacking, except this time I got clickjacked myself. So story turns out that we had a whole backup presentation ready to go just in case this didn't work. So I got click-checked with the backup presentation. Anyway, let's get to the core of the matter. I'm, again, sorry for wasting time. So we're going to talk about evolution. We're going to talk about asymmetry. We're going to talk about cyberspace, sovereignty, and especially Indian society. So first, before we get to the core of the talk, let us first recognize India. There it is, right? Somewhere over there. But let's put this whole thing into perspective. Why is this really relevant to India? And why is India really relevant on the global stage? If you redraw this map based on the population of India, this is what India truly is. A multicultural nation of 843 distinct languages, globalized with the world. And this is why it is very important to explore cyberspace and Indian society on its own rather than borrowing somebody else's examples. So I intend to put some focus into the talk on exactly this topic. First, I want to start with evolution. I have seen the evolution of cybersecurity in the past 23 years. Adam, myself, a few other old schoolers were kind of lucky to get in at the very beginning and stay on, because the roller coaster ride is pretty hard. You can get thrown off quickly. But how have things evolved? So first, let's just look at evolution in general. There are two gentlemen who I consider the fathers of evolution. The person on this side, I am laterally challenged, so I'll always say this side and that side. The person on this side is someone you know very well, Charles Darwin. The person on that side is Gordon Moore. Now, Darwin is also the unintended founder of the Darwin Awards, which are awarded posthumously every year for improving the quality of the human gene pool by the awardee being removed from it in several humorous ways. Gordon Moore does have an award named after him, but it is awarded during the lifetime of the recipient as intended. Gordon Moore, of course, is the founder of Intel Corporation. We will talk about Darwin later, but first we'll talk about Gordon Moore and Moore's law. This is a law that kind of more intuitively talked about in 1965, but it holds true up until now. And it has charted the course of our history, and perhaps it's going to chart the course of our future as far as technology is concerned. And Moore's law simply states that the number of components per integrated circuit shall roughly double every couple of years. What it means is computers are going to get faster and faster and cheaper and more powerful and smaller. And this has led to a very interesting consequence, which we're now seeing, especially since the beginning of the 2010s. The global power shift has happened. So we now are facing a power asymmetry. Oil was the power of the 20th century. Data is the power of the 21st century. And unlike oil, data has a very different property. Data generates more data. Oil does not generate more oil. In fact, the more you use oil, the worse it gets, it reduces. Let's talk about what technology has done in these past several years. I'll give you an example. I used to work many years ago with a dear friend of mine. He ended up becoming a professor of computer science at Virginia Tech, Dr. Srinidhi Vadarajan, very humble guy from Ahmedabad. He eventually went on to build the third fastest supercomputer in the world. And this was called System 10 at Virginia Tech. I have the distinct fortune of typing commands on the root shell of a supercomputer, just because Srinidhi is my friend, he let me do it. Srinidhi built the system from 1100 Power Mac G5s. They were the first G5s to be ever shipped by Apple. The first 1100 that Apple built went to VTech. He built the supercomputer for a fraction of the cost at the time what it would take a machine of that power. So his big deal at the time was System 10 was called System 10 because it could exceed 10 teraflops, which would be 10 trillion floating point operations per second. This was a big milestone back then. And the cost at which he did it was a fraction. He did it for approximately $10 million or less. His actual cost was 5.2 million, and then like 2 more million went into rebuilding it and power supply and everything. But at that time, the third fastest supercomputer in the world would have costed over $100 million. He divided that cost factor by 10. And this was a big achievement back then. This was 2003 November. He made it to number 3 in the top 500 list. Fast forward the tape to 2019 November. A lot of you have played with systems. Have you all heard of the NVIDIA Jetson? Yeah, this is the Jetson Xavier. This little machine can clock out 11 teraflops already. And 22 tera operations per second. It fits into a little square, no bigger than what I'm making with my hands. The cost? Well, you can, we looked up Amazon India. You can actually have it delivered in Ahmedabad for a grand total of 1,24,000 rupees. It'll come in 3 days at your doorstep. So this machine now, what you have is the power of supercomputing. You can all afford it. We can have it on everybody's desktop. The power is here. The capacity is here. What took supercomputers, a room full of supercomputers can now fit within a 5-inch square on your desktop. What can we do with it? You know, supercomputers were used for weather calculations, missile navigation and all that stuff. Well, of course, we don't want to do weather and missiles, but we can do a lot of other things with supercomputing capacity on every desktop. But 2007, I kind of had a sort of an epiphany. Came to realize that evolution has taken over in such a way that the transistor is now replaced by the microprocessor. So in a sense, the microprocessor is the new transistor. My father used to build digital circuits, like things like you clap and the lights will go on, or a water level controller, or things like this. And he used to build it out of discrete transistors, flip-flops and 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 OR gates and so on. Now, you can have an Arduino for almost equal the cost of a transistor. Today, if you look at a Cortex M0 processor, a bare bones ARM32 processor, it costs 2 cents when bought in bulk. You can probably put a Cortex M processor on every light bulb in this hotel. It doesn't cost you much. I mean, this is what also gave rise to IoT, the Internet of Things, because nowadays you don't have to fiddle with the hardware circuits anymore. You take an Arduino, you take a very common piece of hardware, program it, and everybody can be, creating their own electronics gadget. Couple that with the power of the Internet and what have you. Let's study evolution a little more. 2007, in fact, is a very pivotal year in several sorts. On one hand, you had IoT, you had advances in lithium-ion batteries, you have GPS becoming really popular and GPS chips being released that can locate you wherever you are. 3G telephony just happened, high-speed mobile data networks, and what will these evolutionary factors give birth to? The iPhone. This is what got released in 2007, and the world has changed ever since. Computing began to shift from the desktop to the mobile. We all know the story about that. But there are 2 forks in the road from here onwards in evolution. One is the effects of technology could now be directly felt on society. Society started transforming because technology came along with them in their pockets. You have 24/7 technology to go. And you became a slave to the technology. Today, you will feel naked if your cell phone is powered off or not on your person for an extended period of time. Society, of course, began to share its entire life on social media, and these started rising dramatically. But another fork on the road also happened, and this is the evolution of autonomy. We take the same evolutionary factors, the same fast processors, the same data networks, batteries, and GPS. Another creature of evolution was born from these factors. You've all seen it, played with it. It's called a drone. Why did drones not exist before that? It's because flight guidance, the calculations and computations required for autonomous flight guidance were just not powerful enough. If they were powerful enough, they were not small enough to be compressed into a package that can fly. And the batteries were too bulky. So only when everything comes together does something just suddenly evolve. It's been waiting. It just needs one of these factors to fall in place along with the others, and then things will take off, literally and figuratively. Let's see what autonomy has brought on from 2007 to now. We're not quite at the level of Westworld yet, but the video, you all heard of Boston Dynamics. This is a robot doing all sorts of fancy shit on its own. And here it goes. Right? It is an example of precise autonomy, human-level movements, balance, and everything is, we can easily see it from the video that they released. So, while we're not at Westworld, we can certainly be at the level of RoboCop. It's, like I always say, science fiction is not fiction, it is just unpublished science fact. It's just published much earlier than it's just come about much earlier than what it's intended to be. If we look at the evolution of the internet itself, we all started with TCP/IP and all that. I'm not going to bore you with it. But we started with Web 1.0. We suddenly went and did the e-commerce thing on it. social networks in the cloud, that's Web 2.0, data storage also got really cheap. And you could store a lot of basically also very, very compact. You could store terabytes. Everybody pretty much has about half a terabyte in their pockets already. There's phenomenal amount of storage in this room itself. So yes, big data happened, and now you have the power to analyze big data almost in real time. If you look at the evolution of data on the internet, today, by super rough estimates, right? How much data do you think is there on the internet? If all the data is represented by this green blob, we have about 44 zettabytes of data, which basically is another word of saying, 44 metric shit tons of data on the internet. Out of all this data, the staggering fact is 90% of this data was generated only in the past 2 years. The speed at which data is accumulating on the internet is like a heel curve. It is phenomenal trajectory. Oh, what is all this data? Have you thought about it? This is your data. This is every Indian waking up and saying good morning and bringing WhatsApp to its knees. 1.4 billion good morning messages. Only India can pull this stuff off. Because in everybody's family, we have this one Vela grandmother, grandfather, uncle, auntie who's jobless, and every day they wake up, they wish everybody a good morning to good night, and a day is full of gossip across all 5 continents, because Indians are there everywhere, right? This is what we're doing. This is our data, all on the internet, for free. And remember one thing, the internet never forgets. Not a single byte of data is actually being deleted. It is just moved into a deleted folder. How many of you have deleted stuff from your hard drive? Said no one ever, maybe, but usually just buy a bigger hard drive and copy the stuff in it and expand, because it's cheaper to do so. Spending 2 hours fiddling with a hard drive, nope, not going to do it. Now, what happens with all this data? Where do you think this, why are people hosting this data for free? What do you think is being done with this data? Obviously, one of the big drivers, once you have a whole lot of data, several of you have started startups over here, several of you are already quite into startups. You go talk to VC, one of the key words that they really, really want to hear today is machine learning. You throw machine learning at a VC, they'll throw millions of dollars at you. So effectively, machine learning is now a reality thanks to user-contributed data. We have taught the machine how to recognize our own faces, one click, one tag, one like at a time. And the other stuff that the machine doesn't know, it forces from you, making you solve problems. The machine crowdsources you. And yes, thanks to our efforts, the machine is learning. Okay. When the machine learns, okay, how do you monetize it? So Harun Mir, dear friend of mine, he had a fantastic statement. He said the difference between Apple and Google's sales model is very simple. Apple sells to you, Google sells you. So if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And how are we all being sold? Bazaar mein kaise bik rahe hum log? Ye puri duniya mein, right? I'm sure there's some Hindi songs about it. But I can't remember. So, well, how are we sold? 2010, the money was in precise targeting. We were being advertised to with deadly accuracy. The advertising was super effective, and it made a lot of companies several billions of dollars. But advertising is not the monetization drive of the 2020s. What is being sold now are predictions. And companies can now sell you assured outcomes. You want a little island to leave Europe? Sure, we can sell you that. You want to win an election? Sure, we can sell you that. We can move the needle however you want. This is, no, I mean, it seems funny, but I attended a conference in Canada, and the lady over the lunch break was giving this one terrifying talk, and everybody was applauding, all the government people were in there, saying that, yeah, we can actually track the needle in real time. We can basically dissect an entire population on political preferences, gender, sexual orientation, propensity towards spending, education, travel, all sorts of demographic, to a point that we can even predict what you're going to do next. And if the prediction matches, then the model gets trained better and better. Not only can we introduce an experiment, aka disinformation, we can see how the entire population reacts to it. You can see who's going to buy this disinformation, who's not going to buy it, and how many squares do I need to turn from green to red, or red to blue, or blue to yellow. You can do that in real time. And this is what's going on. You've heard everybody speak about it. Every paper has been reporting about it. Micah Lee talked about it in the morning. So the next mutation in the evolution change, as we see, is artificial intelligence. Right? With this, we will talk about a concept that we've talked about since the 80s, but once again, with context to Indian society. So we're going to now explore cyberspace. And I thought about cyberspace, and what are the properties of cyberspace? Somewhat like the whole premise of any sci-fi movie, Inception or whatever you call it, right? You land on a foreign planet. The first thing you're going to do is explore the properties of it. What applies, what doesn't apply? What are the rules when you completely change the space you're in? So one thing about cyberspace is, first and foremost, I discovered that nature's laws don't apply here. And second is, neither do your governments. This is probably the wild, wild west in a very differently imagined way. And cyberspace has been taking off since 2007 especially. In fact, one of my benchmarks of cyberspace is this map by Randall Munro from the XKCD comic. This was what cyberspace used to look like. Back then, it was MySpace dominating everything. And then Facebook, as you can see, was just a little island, not much bigger than Italy. Sorry. Now, Facebook is as big as Russia. No pun intended. And this was 2010. Of course, a lot of other things were going on as well. But cyberspace has now evolved to a point that we're looking at a brave new world. Beautiful novel, if you find yourself time to read it, by Aldous Huxley. We are not living in the real world now. If I ask you, there's also now a big topic of controversy amongst Indians, right? What's your citizenship? What passport are you carrying? You're not really carrying an Indian passport. You're carrying a passport from one of these republics. Your cyber identity exists in one or many of these nations. And this entity that you belong to will govern you or influence you. And you may choose to leave, but it's very hard to leave. Try and leave Google. See how that experiment goes for you. Right? It's not going to happen. So whatever Google does is going to be governance for the digital citizens of today. None of these digital, I can't call them republics, I'll just call them digital territories, because they don't have a government on them. They only have a board administering them. The purpose of the board is simply to increase shareholders' value. There is no democracy, there is no parliament, there is no laws, there is no judicial system in these territories. So that's why I'm calling it the Wild Wild West. So now when you have a society which kind of exists in flesh and blood in the real world, but in mental space, it exists in cyberspace. Your human being is now being slowly split into two parts. The mind is in cyberspace, the body is in reality. What will the questions be as far as sovereignty is concerned? If we explore sovereignty, I'm no professor of law or politics or whatever, I'm just an observer. But if you consider sovereignty, I mean, there are three key pillars that a nation stands upon. First is its atomic program. Second is a space program. And third, I don't want to say population, there's no equivalent, but I'm going to call it Sanskriti. Apni Sanskriti hai to hum hai. Otherwise, we do not exist as a nation. Now, these factors will be re-evaluated. Let us explore cyberspace a little more. Okay? Some of the properties that I kind of discovered in cyberspace, first of all, if you look at cyberspace, there is no difference between a cell and a pixel. Everything looks the same. Cells are building blocks of our own biological beings. Pixels is what cyber beings are made of. Of all the millions of years of human evolution that we've underwent, we've become a pretty formidable being. Right? We went from being apes to cave people, to folks that sailed the seas, to folks that created the Industrial Revolution, to folks that fought world wars, sent people out to space, created the internet, and here we are, almost in an oh shit moment. What have we done? Right? But with all our advancement in human evolution, the one thing to note is that when we move to cyberspace, all the evolution that nature has put into us completely fails us. Today, if you go to a forest and you hear a roaring sound, or at night you see a bright pair of two little lights go up, and you start hearing grumbling sounds, first thing you're going to do is run out. And you can see the threat, you can hear the threat, you can smell the threat. By the time you touch the threat or taste the threat, it's over. All these faculties fail us. In cyberspace, we have zero capacity to recognize threat. Think of it, why is phishing still around? Phishing attacks will continue forever. It's not because the users are stupid. It's not because of companies have not done enough to stop phishing. It's just because we are not equipped to deal with, or we are not equipped to detect threats in cyberspace, period. Every pixel looks as genuine as the other pixel. Second is, we now also have a split personality. Our entire human behavior changes in cyberspace. What is common sense in reality is complete ignorance in virtuality. We behave in two very different ways. Give you an example. Go to a school bus stop, right? Look very, very eerily at the students stepping out, and then make eye contact with the parents. Start going close to the students. Be a creep. What's going to happen? Parents are going to start, taking the kids away, maybe even confronting you, maybe even writing a letter to the school saying, there are all these predators around, we don't want our kids to be exposed to these people. Brilliant, right? Parents are equipped to do that. The same parents will be posting photos of their kids 24/7 on the internet. And they'll get like 183 likes. Out of the 183, 99 will be this. Okay. Nobody gives a shit. But they will post this. They will entirely expose their life. They will say, oh, we are traveling to Dubai for a massive family holiday. You check into the airport and then the plane will show they're going to Dubai. When they come back, their house will be robbed. And they wonder, like, how the hell did people know we're going to Dubai? This is true. I mean, this is what's happening, our behavior. And the more you tell the parents, say, hey, stop doing this. They think, तेरा को क्या है? मैं मस्ती कर रहा हूँ तो फिर तुझे क्यों problem हो रहा है? This is behavior for you. This paper, if you find yourself the time to read it, is titled Computerization, Discretion and Freedom. This is penned by a dear friend of mine, Sergey Bratus, with his students, Anna Shubina. The statement that struck me the most is that eventually computers modify our behaviors related to discretion, professional autonomy, and ultimately moral choice. This paper was written in 2015. If we evaluate this statement with what's going on today, those of you who've been to Amsterdam, I love this statue, it kind of begets a question, where are we living? Are we living in reality or virtuality? What is occupying our thoughts? If you look at it today, this is what's on our thoughts. Everybody is focusing on these things. Until December, the corona thing was not even on people's attention. Now it is eclipsing everything else. And a lot of other things will be forgotten. Only for the next big crisis to come. Australian bushfires happened, corona is happening. What's the next big thing that's going to happen? That's what people are going to focus on. And eventually, what you see happening is that so many people are commenting on stuff. A lot of people in India are already commenting about Trump and Putin and the US elections. Hey, bhai, you don't even vote there. Yeah. There was a meme going around. It had a photo of Pranab Mukherjee, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. And under Obama, it was written, he is not your president. Under Trump, it was written, neither is he. Under Pranab, it was written, he is your president. So stop yapping about the US election in India. Get on with your life. Because it doesn't belong to you. But no, people will opine and people will sink enormous amounts of time debating stuff that is not going to help them. Right? In a way, you can see in terms of physics, cyberspace distorts reality. Here I'll give you a concrete example. This happened with me. One of my hobbies is photography and natural phenomena. So December, I was traveling to Kerala to see the annular solar eclipse. Beautiful sight. And along with us on the plane was a professor from Baroda. She heard us talking in Gujarati, so we sat and talked Gujarati, of course, and ate. Gujarati hai to bhi khana padega, to thoda thepla bhi kha liya. Gujaratis live to eat. So Vibhuti, when she is a very well-educated person, and then she was asking, so what are you doing? What brings you all to Kerala? So I said, this eclipse is happening tomorrow, so we want to photograph it and all that. So she said, oh, that's fantastic. Then later in the day, she sent me this WhatsApp message. And the message reads that, today on the border between the US and Canada, two suns emerged. One being real and the other being the moon. And this is called the moon hunters, and it happens when the Earth changes axis, blah, 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 blah. The only place I know which has two suns is the planet Tatooine, and we are not on it. And the Earth hasn't changed axis as far as I know. But this message was going around and says, share, it's so beautiful. So I thought, okay, Vibhuti Ben is not, she's an educated person. She got convinced that this is real. And in a fraction, she saw it, she believed it is real, hit the forward button and blasted it out. This is what happens. This fake message has now been making the rounds. Right? So this also begets another interesting observation. If you read about history is full of miracles, chamatkar. We Indians are no strangers to chamatkar. Right? We still have donkeys today who can pull off chamatkars in the name of whatever cult or religion they exist in. But if you look at a graph, here is my favorite chart. It is a chart of the frequency of miracles plotted over time. So up until the invention of the camera, we had many, many miracles. The frequency of miracles became zero when the camera was invented, and suddenly maximized when Photoshop was invented. You want to ask an expert today, I want to quote Stefano Zanero. I wish he was here in the audience. Looking forward to seeing him. He posted this. If you look at how experts have evolved, well, basically, this is the experts have evolved today. Today's expert opinions comes from your auntie or uncle on Facebook. Right? And to illustrate a point about how reality can be distorted, you have a very real cult of flat earthers in America. This dude built a rocket, and recently he will now be nominated for a Darwin Award. If you followed, the rocket did actually launch, but he became a member of the Flat Earth Society very, very quickly. Mike Hughes did not survive. His parachute did. This is what prompts people. Imagine the effort to build a rocket. The damn thing goes up and then kills you with it. Why does disinformation work? Right? What is the fundamental property why disinformation works? And it is the bullshit asymmetry, as somebody put it really eloquently. The amount of energy necessary to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than what it takes to produce it. So you start engaging with a flat earther and try to convince them that the world is not flat. My God, you will actually back away and say, "Ha ha, yaar, kar jo karna hai," or whatever, man. So imagine this, and now with the evolution of populations, today your social network is also evolved. Right? This is typically part of the social. And let me do a thought experiment here. I want to also point out certain cognitive biases. Don't be embarrassed. Out of these profiles, numbered 1 through 8, pick out who you think is the leading environmental activist. What do you say? 6, 1, 3, 1, 4. All right, let's get sharper. Who is going to be the CEO of the next unicorn startup? 4. All right. Who is going to be the next Nobel Prize winner in literature? 2, 8, 3. Who is going to be a professor of life sciences at Harvard? 8. Who is the journalist? First, वो तो environmental पे है. All right. Who is going to be the next explorer to Everest? 5. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are wrong, because this person does not exist. I pulled off these profiles from thispersondoesnotexist.com. These are completely fake. But see how your mind works. You believe they're real. Just by their appearance, you will associate certain properties subconsciously. We're not blaming you for it. This is how humans are. This is what evolution has done to us. We cannot say that everything is neutral. The weighted average, our neural network is set. But then the machine is now growing up. The machine can pull this off in near real time. So now if you're actually looking at cyberspace, a carbon-based life form is no different than a silicon-based life form. They also both have the same chemical compositions in a way. And when you are in cyberspace, you do not know whether you're dealing with a silicon-based life form. These are examples of two silicon-based life forms which never existed in reality. They are deep fakes. And they were caught only after a very long time. So with artificial intelligence, evolution of supercomputing on your desktop, graphics, high-speed data networks, autonomy, storage, we've built all these fantastic things. Where are we headed? All of you, or most of you read the Panchatantra or heard of the stories, right? I grew up on ACKs as well. There is this amazing story about 4 students who learned all this Vidya from their Guruji. Fantastic Vidya. And then when they go home, they of course have to cross a forest. And of course there are dangerous things in the forest. So they came across the carcass of a dead animal. The first guy says, "I'm damn smart, I can put the bones together." The second guy says, "I'm smarter than you, I can put the flesh together." The third guy says, "I'm the smartest of all, I can make it come to life." And the fourth guy says, "Hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? You've got no idea." They all shut him up because he says, "Tu to kya hai, tujhe to kuch aata nahi tha. You were, like a favorite of the teacher and you did all this jhadu pota, that's why he let you continue. So don't stop us, man. We're doing something damn great. Don't try and stop us." Of course, this dumb guy climbs up a tree. The lion comes to life. That was the end of the students. So think about it. The moment you put life into a silicon-based life form, extrapolate. Okay, enough about that. Let's come to the evolution of colonization. We Indians are no strangers to it, right? But if you were to pull it off again, what would colonization 2.0 look like? How do you dominate the world once again. Well, Britain's in no shape to do it, but somebody else just might. Right? So if you were to consider this whole triangle of sovereignty and you want to colonize, which triangle are you going to go after? Certainly not the nuclear bombs, because that would be an oh shit moment. Space too far away to reach, so your shortest path, as all hackers know, is the weakest link, and that is humans. So if you can divide and conquer a population in cyberspace, you can colonize that physical nation. This is the truth. And we see what cybersecurity in 2020 is coming out to be. It's not going to be your cross-site scripting and clickjacking. It's going to be deep fakes, deception campaigns, and digital destabilization. It's already begun. Sadly enough, there is no anchor, right? There's no anchor of truth, no source of truth, no origin of truth. Perhaps in the 90s, you could say that the news media was an anchor. The reportage was fair. Today, news media's days are over. They are becoming more noise than signal as we speak. And honestly, the news media has literally lost its grip on the population. Thanks to their own skews and biases, and the few of them who may be still true, they're just dwindling away. The next steps will be unmanned armed forces. We already see drones carrying out strikes against nations. What is to not say that a Boston Dynamics robot might form a boots-on-the-ground army with what's coming. An unmanned civilian law enforcement is again the next step. So if you now want to see the decade beyond, right, from artificial intelligence, just watch Terminator and just watch The Matrix, right? Okay. So now when we talk about sovereignty and society, let's kind of take a step back and see what the current superpower capabilities are. First of all, the Five Eyes, their superpower is data dominance. They're all over the data. They've mastered the art of massive data analytics and data security, or offensive or defensive operations therein. China, hardware dominance. China is in every pocket, every firmware. Russia, they have mastered the art of society and psychological operations. They can move the needle across populations at will. They have weaponized this game. The dudes out there in the Hermit Kingdom, they have mastered the art of financial attacks. They don't have money, so they've figured out ransomware and cyber heists. They can rob Bangladeshis and whatnot with precision and therefore be able to fund their operations. But they need money too. Israel, master in cyber weapons and surveillance. And these guys just discovered how to hack journalists, unfortunately not digitally. So now we have the whole emergence of the military digital complex, version 3.0. You have agencies or organizations which hold immense power over nations at large. You have the Stratforce, the NSO groups. Here's a list of, these are the prices which cyber weapons exploits are being sold. You're no strangers to this. You probably know these lists. Probably they might have even doubled since the publication of this tweet. The Palantirs, and of course, no slide would be incomplete without Cambridge Analytica. Now, of course, reformed and rebranded as something else. So this is what all the other nations have, right? हमारे पास क्या है? हमारे पास माँ है. Thank you. What we have, ladies and gentlemen, is defense in diversity. See, the thing is, India is a unique nation. We will not be able to do anything that other nations have done because nobody is similar to India. India has been a nation that has lasted over millennia. And every political experiment you can think of has been already done in our history, in some shape or form or the other. We just have to look inside. But because of this, we have some fantastic diversity, and that is kind of holding us up We may not have an advantage in the information asymmetry game. You cannot play catch up to the United States. You cannot play catch up to Google's or Facebook. You're not going to win. The data accumulation is way fast. But we do have an information diversity advantage. We are a country of 26 or more countries with different languages. Just look at your banknote. I can only read 2 lines of the banknotes. The scripts otherwise are unknown to me. We have 843 spoken languages and dialects. We have a treasure of information in highly diverse information. This is what's holding us up. I mean, today, if you want to do a disinformation campaign, if you're another nation and try to do a disinformation campaign against India, the digital muscle does not exist to run a disinformation campaign in 50 different languages in different cultural contexts. It's not going to work. Today, tomorrow, we don't know. The Google Translates are working hard and they're getting better. So this, if we want to kind of get an edge in today's cyber society, first of all, let me present to you my half-baked theorem of problem and solution spaces. My theorem states that the solution to any problem lies in a distinctly different space than the problem itself. Essentially, what I mean is, don't try and solve a technological problem or a problem created by technology. Don't try to solve it by more technology itself. The solution doesn't lie in technology. Look at antivirus today on your desktop. The problem of malware is created by technology. Antivirus tries to put more technology on top of it. And the result is we still have a spectacular fail. And we have all sorts of talks and techniques happening on how to bypass antivirus. The problem is this is flawed by design. If you want to solve a problem created by technology, the solution will never be in the technical space. It will either be in the policy space, or the society space, behavior space, knowledge space, but certainly not technology. So if we really need to realign our digital posture, you may be facing massive armies, but guess who won in this big battle? Right? We all know the answer. I have 3 messages. I'm now going to kind of come to the conclusion of my talk. I have 3 messages. The first for the government. Of course, everybody must preach to the government. It's our fundamental birthright. Second to the industry, and third for cybersecurity professionals. So first and foremost, as we are the nation which is kind of going digital, we really need to start thinking about cybersecurity very, very soon. First, let's explore the message to the government. So I have 3 wishes for the Indian government. Whoever of you are here from the government organizations, or whoever can bear influence upon our government, please carry this message. First and foremost, we do need Bharat crypto. This slide is taken from NullCon 2014, where I did a talk called 12 Years and a Baker's Dozen. I made the same appeal. We do need our own indigenous cryptography. I'm not saying that we throw away all existing cryptography, but we do need our own. And we need 2 versions of it. We need a military-grade crypto system, and which I'm told we already have. But we also need a commercial-grade crypto system, which for now does need to be applied across all public sector and critical infrastructure organizations. It does not need to be secret. It should be published, but it should be indigenous and our own. Second, I made the appeal in another presentation which I did 2 years ago. We do need, I might get crucified for saying these words, but we do need an indigenous desktop and a computing environment. Fortunately, there is a lot of progress being made in this. How many of you heard of CDAC's Boss Linux? Very good. Boss Linux has actually evolved quite a lot. It is a very good, stable Linux distro. The challenge is it is not widely adopted as much as we wish it to be. Somehow, what needs to happen is the government making an initiative for all critical infrastructure organizations, all public sector units, to start adopting BOSS as a default platform. This has to happen. BOSS supports indic content, which is very, very vital to preserve and enhance our digital diversity. In fact, one of the forums that I'm also a part of is called the Gujarat Literature Festival. We recognize that Gujarati as a language is just dwindling away. We need a revival not only of Gujarati, but a lot of Indic languages by digitalization of all our linguistic heritage. But yes, let Indic content be natively supported by a distro. The more diversity you have in computing platforms, the more resistance you'll have against cyber campaigns, especially the quick and dirty ones like ransomware. The reason why ransomware exists is because of Windows and Bitcoin. It is a homogeneous digital DNA supported by an anonymous cryptocurrency. That's why ransomware exists. You can't take away the cryptocurrency, so let's just change the digital DNA. Let's just make it heterogeneous, just like our country. Why not? Not only is it important to adopt an open computing Indic desktop, that's not where it stops at. The key factor is we also need to have something like the OpenStack, but OpenStack must make use of BOSS Linux as a platform or something equivalent of it. All applications published must conform to this open Indic ecosystem. Right? A great example you can take from, well, the DARPA CFT. I really, really wish the DRDO and the NTRO introduce the cyber fast track. Well, the point was made in the morning that the NTRO is offering a PPP, a public-private partnership. But that's not where it ends. You know, the whole problem with it is one has to cut through the red tape. This is something really successful that Mudge did during his days at DARPA. Cyber fast track evolved and embraced a large portion of the researcher community, and a lot of projects got accepted, catalyzed without red tape. Today, if you ask me to engage, I would love to engage. So would a lot of you. You would love to do something for the nation. But going through the whole bureaucratic process and committee after committee and empanelment after empanelment and all that, you would say, boss, forget it, yaar. Ye nahi karne wala hu main. I'm going to go back and do my own thing. That is the big drawback over here. So that would be one of my messages. Next, let's talk about our dear industry, the private sector. The only message I have for them, basically, other than a message to organizations such as Nullcon, is let's try and bridge the gap. Nullcon is doing its best to bridge the gap. But the industry now needs to walk the other half of the bridge. We are trying to meet them halfway as researchers. We've done that. I really wish the CXOs and all would walk the other half of the bridge and create a dialogue. The only dialogue I would like to create about secure computing environments with the industry is that it is time to focus on trustworthy systems. Forget all this reactive patching, shatching, rules, signatures, update. All that stuff is reactive security. We've done that. We have enough firewalls, enough rule sets, enough endpoint protection, enough single sign-on and PKIs and biometrics and whole lot of things. But none of these can keep a red teamer away. The missing part in the equation of trust is the user. We as an industry are to blame for ignoring the user because repeatedly we have called the user as an idiot. We have never trusted the user to take the right decision, but that is not the fault of the user. The problem is we have never empowered the user to take a proper decision. We have not used technology to empower the user to take a correct decision. So if you really want to build trustworthy systems, these are the 4 pillars of trust. You need to make your system transparent. Publish metrics. Create resilience. If something goes wrong, come back up again really, really quick. And last and not least, put the user as the prime focus. Because as we know, it's a matter of PEBCAT. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. User hardening efforts have not made any progress compared to software hardening efforts. What happens if you actually put the user in control? There are some good examples of that. If you look at WhatsApp web, how many of you use WhatsApp? I do. How many of you use WhatsApp web? Have you reset your password on WhatsApp web? It's a trick question, because there is no password on WhatsApp. How the hell did WhatsApp pull out a passwordless system? They just tied your identity to the phone number. When you want to authenticate to WhatsApp web, you simply aim the camera at the QR code and it's done, right? This is how you put control and trust in the user. Empower the user. Don't make them remember shitty passwords and don't make them change it once a month. You do not risk a username and password breach if you don't do that. You just eliminate passwords from the equation. It's possible. Put the user in control. Here's an example of one of our customers actually did it, Kotak Bank. They now have the ability, all Kotak users, and now a lot of other banks do as well, to enable and disable your ATM card for transactions. You can just send an SMS, block transactions on your ATM card. If you want them enabled, you just send an SMS and unblock it. The card will be in a default blocked state. This is called empowering the user. Put the user in control. They will take the right decision of security. Okay. Several others, this Telegram. Telegram does this, it tells you where somebody is logged in from. You can unlog them, you log them out from the control of your phone. Gmail does that, WhatsApp does that. Put the user in control and the user will definitely become a part of your cybersecurity ecosystem. This is my message to all the industry out there. When you're deploying solutions, do not leave the user out of the equation. In fact, put them on the center stage and build it around the user. Last message is to all our dear InfoSec professionals, all right? You're doing great. The next thing you have to do is you actually have to become the educators of our new cyber society. It's happening. It is up to us to teach those around us. Yes, that includes all the annoying uncles and aunties on your WhatsApp group. But you have to do that. You have to, maybe you've lost the challenge with the the OK boomers, but the Gen Z is the promising generation. If they are empowered with cyber street smartness, then you can perhaps win. They are capable of taking the right decisions. They just need to be taught how. It is up to us, having gathered this information and experience, to be able to distill it and pass it on. It just boils down on one thing. But before I do that, I want to give you a little test to see the Saumil Shah certification of cyber education. All right, ready for it? Here. This is a forward I got a week ago, a forwarded WhatsApp message. Dr. Francis Boyle, creator of bioweapons, says the act of coronavirus is a biological warfare weapon. There's a video that goes along with it and says that this was stolen from Canada, the Chinese stole it from Canada, and India is launching an investigation of the Chinese, blah, 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 blah. All right? Let's play a KBC-style quiz. Out of the choices, is this true? Is this false? Or Corona beer causes coronavirus? Or one of you is actually Dr. Francis Boyle. If they are, then you need to come on stage and leave. Which one do you think it is? Corona beer causes coronavirus. Yes, Corona beer lost $132 million in revenue thanks to this fact. So anyway, you passed the cyber street smartness test, and therefore you are now equipped to enable the society. Tell the cyber society you always have a choice. Tell them to always check the facts themselves. Nobody but you is now capable of fact checking. If you're doubtful about the fact, I give you the Henlon's razor. This is a tool that will help you make the right decision. And this Henlon's razor simply says, never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by incompetence, stupidity, negligence, or replace common malady here. Basically, this means is nobody is out to get you. Right? Don't take things with this dramatic scaremongering. If you still have a doubt, enroll into STFU University. The best thing is to do is to not spread disinformation. Just like don't spread the coronavirus. Okay? Keep your mouth shut. You will never go wrong. Lastly, there are a lot of heroic efforts being done already. One of them is a booklet on cyber safety for children. This has been published by CDAC. There are a lot of people who worked hard to create this in a storybook form. I highly encourage this to be taken to educational institutes. The message needs to be spread to parents, teachers, and educate the Gen Zs. So lastly, I want to kind of wrap up by saying that the sovereignty that we're concerned about is actually in our hands. We need to really, as a society, as industry, and as government, take charge of it. This talk was actually upcycled from several of my talks before. The CISO's Dilemma from 44Con, NullCon 2014, where I talked about some of the slides are repeated from there and others. With this, I conclude. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Jai Hind. Questions?
Thank you, sir. It was pleasure listening to you. As we have come to an end of Day 1 NullCon 2020, I would like to thank each and every one of you for making this day a success. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the speakers who shared their deep knowledge with us. Last but not the least, a wonderful audience. Without you, this event would not have been possible. You were the pillar of this event. And also, I would like to announce post-conference parties tonight at 7:30 p.m. sponsored by Microsoft for the corporate conference pass holders and speaker pass holder in Sidade, Goa Lawn. Please remember to bring your badges for access. Thank you. See you tomorrow on Day 2 NullCon 2020. This is Shama Khan signing off.
Questions ka time hai kya? Questions ka time hai kya? Any questions, or you want to grab me at the party? Party? Well, if you have questions, there is a person at the very end. I would definitely like to offer them the question, please. Go ahead. Mic aega.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
So I like the empowering the user part in your talk.
I'm so sorry. Can barely the user part of what?
Yeah. So I like the part where you said that empower the user.
Yes. Thank you.
But on the other hand, I have a question on when you said we should use I think platform like BOSS, right? And the cryptography Indian-made military grade or commercial grade crypto. So are you suggesting to isolate computing, nationalized, isolate computing? Is that the idea? Because China is on those sides, they have their own search engines. So is that the idea, or what? I want you to expand on that. What do you really mean?
Sure. So if I recap the question, part one was you appreciated the statements on the user hardening side. Part two, the question is about, are we with creating a Linux or a desktop environment, are we suggesting to nationalize computing platforms and create a separate space? No. Oh wait, the slides are kind of gone. No worries. No, we are not really creating isolations over here. Nothing should be isolated. My last line in that slide, which I'm going to read out, is we need to incentivize adoption via smart policies. It's not like this needs to be made mandatory. The moment you make things mandatory, people will figure out ways around it. But here, let's create an incentive that if you go this way, here are the added benefits. And you may, being a government, not only be able to create some technical incentives, but economic incentives as well. The moment you incentivize this, let the ecosystem itself adopt it. Measure the rate of adoption, see what's going wrong. Either you need to incentivize it better, maybe support or more updates or more activities required, and then let it just come together, sort of organically but catalyzed. That would be my approach, not a rock solid, build a wall, Trump approach.
Yeah, I mean, there's another challenge that I was seeing in the boss side of the boss, the Linux distro.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are we suggesting that government should be taking the ownership of that and then create further patches? I mean, the distributions.
So about Boss Linux,
yeah.
the government has already done that. It is CDAC's initiative.
Okay.
Boss Linux has come from CDAC, which is a government initiative itself.
So would that be scalable?
It's very stable. It just needs to be adopted and actively supported. See, two things that create a problem in adoption. One is the availability of support. If a platform is not supported, today's organizations don't have the expertise in-house to support it themselves. And the reason why commercial operating systems win is because they also offer support with it. For better or worse, that's how it is. And then you have a support, you have an SLA, and people come and do that job for you. So create a consulting environment around this, create a support environment around this, and then push it out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. And after that, Cristoforo. First you go. Yeah.
I'm fully aware I'm keeping people from the party. So short question is that you've been talked about encryption and talked about domestic encryption. The question I have for you, especially if focusing on government, national security agencies and others on encryption and developing strong encryption capability, given the fact that the Indian government's also been the most hostile to strong encryption, have wanted vulnerabilities. Let me finish.
No, I cannot hear you. You guys can hear it really well, but I have a problem hearing it because speakers are facing that way.
Okay. Is this better? Can you hear it clearer now?
I think a little better, yes.
Okay. Any better now?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I was going to say you talked about strong encryption capability within India as an objective for what you think the government should do. But isn't the government itself the number one opponent for that in the way they've looked at backdoors, encryption key strengths, or even the fact that the people you mentioned there are mostly also intelligence services or security services? The question I have for you is if you think that growth of the domestic cryptographer community or even domestic encryption is critical, given the sort of national security and intelligence or law enforcement approach they've had for that, isn't that our own goal in its own way? Aren't those same agencies the one holding back the crypto community in India?
I'm going to rephrase this question from what I could hear. So cryptography is a double-edged sword, if I may say so. So on one hand, the problems are, what if you create your own crypto system? Isn't the government itself going to be the hurdle against creating a crypto system for itself? Because on one hand, you would want certain backdoor capabilities or interception capabilities to be enabled. So why now create a crypto system around it? Would that adequately capture the question? Because the government wants backdoors, they're actually hostile to cryptography. Yes and no. I had a wonderful slide over here. I wish I could pull it out. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. We got this slide. So, you're talking about firewalls. Can we have the slides on the screen, please? I usually like to give answers with visuals. here. This was long time ago, a way of, how to secure stuff using firewalls, right? So, to protect against a Huawei firewall, you put a Juniper firewall in front of it. To protect against a Juniper firewall, you put a Cisco in front of it and then a checkpoint in front of it. So it's, in a way, the same thing kind of goes a cat and mouse with crypto systems. Today you don't trust X crypto system, so you put Y crypto system on it. And then you don't trust Y, then you put Z on it. Sadly, and that's why I made the statement about cryptography by saying that this is probably, I'm going to crucify myself with this statement. It's exactly this. You're right. The government will be hostile towards it. But at the same point, the government agencies only need this. The military will need this. Critical infrastructure will need it. So that's why I'm saying, like, okay, create the 2 grades and publish them. जो है वो है, उसमें backdoor डालना है तो डालो. Just make sure the others don't figure it out. Or if they do, put another crypto system around it. That's the only answer I can give you. That being said, I am no crypto expert. No, I could not hear again. Half the people here can see all the transactions on HTTPS anyway. Forget government, no?
But still, it's still safer than being on HTTP, right?
It's like wearing a shirt as an armor.
Yeah, but giving it to the government, I think that's one of the few reasons why it's across the globe. It's not preferred. That, I mean, they can still see it, but you're just giving it away. That's my thoughts.
Maybe. But I'll take Christopher's question now. Like I said, I somehow survived a cryptography class at Purdue under SPAF, and I passed it with a good grade, and that's about all the crypto I want to do in my entire life.
Thank you, Saumil. It's been really enlightening because, of course, I'm not being Indian. Many of the things actually resonate in a different way, of course. And of course, I mean, there are things which I cannot comment upon, although they find them interesting. But there is one thing which I think I can comment upon, at least. You mentioned that one strength is diversity, and I definitely agree with you. So it's not under discussion for me. But in order to appreciate diversity, which is also why you need to have diversity, you also need to have the cultural strength to accept it. Because what we see also in Europe is that, yes, we have diversity, but maybe we can become hostile to that diversity. So also the reaction to the diversity become important. And I notice this is connected to one thing which is happening. We are literate, so we actually studied, we know how to read and write, but the number of functionally illiterate is actually growing. So people who actually are able to read what they're saying, but what they find in front, but they're not able to summarize the concept that they're in front. And if you are not able to do so, even accepting the diversity as such, under this flurry of message that you get, becomes more difficult. So at that point, the diversity becomes a source of hostility. So I'm not sure that how much effort we need to put in to make sure that people still stay alive with their brains and not only having diversity in front.
This is a very, very well appreciated point. Can't summarize Cristoforo's statement in a short version, but we do wish that people still have the ability to think and decide with their brains, not be flooded by a sea of, what shall we say? I think I had a slide for that as well.
That's great. Hi.
One moment. Basically, what's happening is our thoughts are being context switched, and we are not animals that can multitask.
Yeah.
We basically just end up living in an echo chamber, focusing upon the next big issue that's blowing up. And this is actually taking up time slices. We only have 24 hours in a day, and out of which our brain can only think for, I don't know, today if I were to evaluate my own independent thinking, I'm not thinking for more than about 30 minutes in a day. Every day, every other minute I'm using for doing something else. Either Ravi is bugging me for something, or Hiren's bugging me for something, or I have to book a ticket, or I have to cancel a flight, or I have to prepare some slides. Active thinking happens only when I'm really, really tired, which is not at my best. And then decision making does not happen. So yes, we do need to defrag our hard drives in a way, create some space, and essentially we need to jettison off the junk that does not concern us.
Yeah.
Like for example, the Brexit and the US elections, I just do not react to that because it's not something I can influence myself. Maybe after that whole thing has happened, I'll understand it, from someone. Okay, bhai, kya hua Brexit mein? Okay, 1 GB less from Europe, maybe. Whatever, right? Theek hai, done. Big deal. So that's it. There's something that is like, for example, the epidemic going on now. Yeah, I have to be very actively engaged in it. It would be foolish to ignore that. So pick your battles wisely. And as professionals who are now turning into educators to society, teach them to make the right choices. I would hope for that as well.
Thank you. I know we will have time for discussing all these topics. We both like these things.
Sorry?
We will have time for discussing these topics. We both like these kind of aspects. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Party kare?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you.